So you want to get started listening to audiobooks? In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you might not want to listen to audiobooks versus just reading the actual book. Welcome back to the DLJonesBooks channel. I'm your host, DL Jones, and in my channel, I talk about a lot of story-related issues, how you consume stories, things I like about stories, all types of topics dealing with stories that could be in books, audiobooks, movies, TV shows, and video games. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about 5 reasons why you might not want to get started on listening to that audiobook. You might want to just buy the book. If you are already an audiobook person, you listen to audiobooks all the time, you've probably already figured a lot of these out. But if you just got this book that you heard about, you want to listen to, you want to start giving audiobooks a shot, you haven't done it before, this may be something that you might want to listen to first, because it gives you a few things that come up that you might not realize until after you've gotten started listening to that audiobook. Okay, so the first reason you might not want to get started listening to that audiobook, and you might want to just go ahead and buy the paperback or the ebook and start reading it, is that when you listen to an audiobook, your interpretation of what you're reading is not your own interpretation. And what I mean by that is when you read a book, usually the images you get in your mind, the environments, the locations, how they look, how they sound, how they feel, they're all created in your mind by the words that you read, by how you interpret the words that you read on the page. The characters, how the characters sound, their accents, all of that is created in your mind when you're reading the book. When you listen to an audiobook, all of that is given to you. The description of how things are is given to you in the way that the narrator has interpreted in his reading of that particular book. The characters, the way their voices sounds, their accents, all of that kind of stuff, the narrator decides that for you. It's all given to you. You know, on the narrator's part, it's a performance, and he got to convey his interpretation of what he reads to the listener. And you as a listener, you basically just take in what is given to you instead of creating it all in your mind and creating your own visions and your own sounds in your head of how you interpret the things that you read. So if you're big on coming up with your own interpretations of stuff you read, an audiobook may be something that might hinder that feature for you, that enjoyment for you. So that's number 1. You know, you might lose it in your own interpretation versus just consuming the narrator's interpretation of the words on the page. Okay, and that comes to my reason number 2. Now, reason number 2, if you are one of those people that are really a stickler for how words are pronounced, if you're a stickler for pronunciation, listening to an audiobook may be something that you might not want to do. Reason being, a lot of times, if you do a lot of readings, like I do, I don't necessarily do a lot of reading of books, but I read my fair share of books, but I do a lot of reading in general as far as reading online and reading stuff, trying to learn new things. And one thing that happens is that you run across a lot of words that you may have never heard anyone say. You've only ever known that word on the page. You've only ever known it from reading it on the page. You run into that a lot with a lot of names. What happens is when you are listening to an audiobook, then the pronunciation of different words are going to be that narrator's pronunciation. A lot of times it may be a good thing because you may have a word that you never heard before, and that narrator is the one that tells you how this word is supposed to be said in real life. You might find out that you've been saying the word wrong all along. But then again, you have things like different accents and stuff like that. A big thing that I can think of is the word water. Some people may pronounce water or water or whatever. I know I sound crazy, but different pronunciations of things could be different depending on the person and how they were brought up and what part of the country or which country they live in and everything like that. And if it's different from what you are used to, then something like that, if you're listening to a book that takes place in the ocean and the person is pronouncing water in a different way than you're used to pronouncing it yourself, it may be something that will ruin the experience for you. Maybe something that sticks in your head every time the word is said, and the word may be said a million times throughout the 10, 12, 15 hours of listening to that audiobook. So that's number 2. If you're a stickler for pronunciation, You don't want to hear things pronounced in a way that you don't necessarily approve of. If stuff like that bothers you, that may be a reason why you may want to just read the book instead of listening to the audiobook. Okay, for now my third reason that you may not want to listen to the audiobook versus reading the actual book is I'll put it this way. Have you ever known anyone that if they ever get a phone call, let's say you're in a room and someone gets a phone call, and once they answer the phone, they want everybody to be quiet. They motion for everybody to be quiet. They turn the volume on the TV all the way down, and then it's just completely silent in the house while that person is talking on the phone. That person needs the full concentration on the phone call and can't have other things distracting them. Have you ever known anybody like that? Some people, they'll get a phone call and they can listen to music, they can watch TV, they can play video games, they can hold conversations on the phone and with other people in the room. They can do it all at one time and it doesn't bother you, but everybody's not like that. Some people has to concentrate on the one thing. If they got to listen to the person on the phone call, everybody else got to, be mindful of that. And every other thing that's going on in the house have to be tuned down or turned down so that they can focus on the phone call. Now, with audiobooks, if you're that type of person where you need that kind of focus, an audiobook may be tough because the same thing happens with an audiobook. When you're listening to an audiobook, you're focusing completely on that. And if you get into a situation where something else happens, somebody walks in and talks to you, the TV is too loud, the phone rings while you're in an audiobook, then your attention is being taken away from the audiobook. And the difference between an audiobook and reading a paperback book, if your attention is taken away from you when you're reading a book, a paperback book, your eyes leave the page. You put the book down, your eyes leave the page, and whatever focus you had on that book stops once you turn your focus somewhere else. Audiobook could be a little bit tricky because what can happen with an audiobook is someone can come in or something can come in and take your attention away, and you may forget to pause the audiobook. You may try to do both, but your attention goes somewhere else. And next thing you know, when you get back to the audiobook, a couple of chapters may have went by and you may not know what's going on. Now you got to go back and search from the last spot that you remember hearing. So that's a reason. If you're easily distracted, if you need to completely focus and you know that you might not be in a situation where you'll be able to get that focus, that might be a situation where you might rather read the paperback or the ebook versus listening to the audiobook. I want to take this time here to ask you to make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking the like button and the subscribe button below if you like to hear more content about story-related topics. And make sure you click the bell also so you get notified when new videos are posted. Now, the fourth reason why you might rather just read the paperback or the ebook versus listen to the audiobook is that, sometimes you just need to make sure you have headphones. And headphones is something you got to keep up with. You may not always have it with you. A lot of times when you're listening to an audiobook, you're not in a situation where you can just play it on your phone or play it on speakers. You might be in situations where you're waiting at a doctor's office for an appointment. You're at work, you're in the grocery store shopping, and you just can't have audiobooks blaring out in the public. So you need headphones. And that's something that you just got to always worry about keeping up with headphones, making sure the headphones is charged. A lot of times you need a Bluetooth headphones because a lot of the phones and stuff, if you're using a phone, don't have the actual wired port anymore on the phone, and you need the Bluetooth. That's another big issue, just making sure you always have headphones available. And if you're one of those people that's always forgetting them or always have to concentrate on making sure you bring it with you, maybe just easier just to bring the paperback or just use the Kindle app on your phone and just read it on your phone, or carry your Kindle with you so that you can just read it whenever you have that moment to read without having to worry about any extra equipment. Now, the last reason number 5 on why you might want to read the paperback or the ebook versus listening to an audiobook. And this is a situation that doesn't happen with everybody. It doesn't happen with me. And the only reason is because I know better and I don't try it anymore. And that is if you like to read before you go to bed. If you like to, lay in bed and for 20, 30, 40 minutes before you fall off to sleep, you like to read a book and then you doze off to sleep. If you try to do that with an audiobook, you could find yourself in a lot of problems. Because see, what would happen if you're listening to an audiobook, you're laying in the bed, you're listening to an audiobook while you're, about preparing to go to sleep. Within 20, 30 minutes, you doze off, that audiobook's going to keep playing. And when you wake up in the morning, that's when you'll look at your phone and you'll look and you'll see that it's saying that you're finished, like you've listened to the whole book because it played throughout the whole night while you were asleep. And now you have to go back and search through when you think was the spot that you last remembered listening to. And if you're not really keeping up, if you're just listening to it and not really keeping up with chapters and all of that kind of stuff, it could take forever. You could be skipping through all of the different chapters trying to guess where it was that you fell asleep so you don't miss different part. And a lot of times if you're reading a book, whether it's a paperback or an ebook, once you get too sleepy to read it, you're gonna roll over and put the book down, and you're gonna be on, it's gonna be on the page where you decide to put the book down. So you're not gonna lose your play. So if you like to read before you go to sleep, read in bed before dozing off, reading a paperback or ebook may be a better option than listening to the audiobook in those situations. One good thing though is that some audiobooks, not all of them, but some audiobooks bought on Audible will sync up with your ebook. So if you decide you want to listen to the audiobook and then read sometimes, like at nighttime before you go to bed, you decide to read. Some audiobooks, depending on if they have whisper sync, if that Audible book and the Amazon ebook, if they have whisper sync, in that situation, you can go back and forth. So you could potentially just read the ebook at night and then, put the ebook down, and then the next day go back and use the read the audiobook, and it'll sync up so you don't ever lose your spot or anything like that. But you have to make sure that the audiobook, ebook that you're trying to read and listen to have whisper sync. Not everyone has whisper sync, but you just have to check. But there you have it. 5 reasons why you may want to read the paperback or the ebook versus listening to the audiobook. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.